Hey guys, Dylan Randall here again. This is the third video of this segment. This is to promote my new book, God the Master of Science. Last time I went into the time factor and how if you remove the time factor, the entire account in Genesis, teaming with the idea that God gave them a very basic account of what they were able to handle, provides us enough ground to be able to validate the book of Genesis and what is contained therein. And it also allows everything in science to coexist with the creation. And I'm going to go into that in detail. I actually go into everything in my book in absolute detail. I verify that with scriptural references, with the actual theories themselves, and I go into detail and everything. But right now I'd like to talk about evolution. This is the big one right here. This is the one that there is totally a war of words over. Okay, it's like, okay, evolution, God. Okay, nobody has ever thought to think that, maybe maybe God created the process of evolution. Well, let me explain how this could possibly coincide with the book of Genesis. Once again, if we take away the time factor, God can basically, he can do 7 days of work in different time periods and do an actual 7 days of work back to back while doing them in different eras of time, like natural selection. He can, some call it the nature, natural selection of nature. I call it the will of God, and I think that it's very valid to say that whether you believe in God or not, there's some form of intelligent design in natural selection that makes everything happen so perfect like it is today. Well, evolution, my friends, is, in my mind, it's how God goes back, because God's outside of time, past, present, and future, all the same. It's kind of, I want you to think of this sphere of reality, okay, that God would have in front of him. And once again, if we believe in the Bible, we know that God is outside of time. He's all-knowing, he's omnipotent. So he has to be able to see past, present, and future and be able to insert things into here, okay? So, how likely is it to say that God creates these processes? He comes and he plants a seed here, and then he's got a tree. Okay, make a couple of tweaks along the lines so that the ending result is exactly what it needs to be. Okay, well, evolution is basically it's a natural engine that God creates. Okay, let's look at in the book of Jeremiah. It says, and this is God talking to Jeremiah. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Well, we know that whenever a child is formed in the womb, it's not formed by an actual pair of hands. God doesn't actually form a child in the womb. He's created the process for forming that child. Okay, we see that all through nature. Only an idiot would say otherwise. We have diseases, we have cells, we have all these things, clear down to atoms. We have all these naturally occurring processes in nature. Well, evolution provides the ability for us to have those naturally occurring processes that God absolutely has to have. Okay, so let's look at it this way. Just in our own civilization, let's look at how evolution has helped us out to be able to build a more glorious future. If all of a sudden God just created everything and give us everything, all the knowledge and all, everything that we could possibly want or have, we wouldn't even have any desire to further our education. We wouldn't have a desire for anything more, because we'd already have everything. We'd become complacent, and we'd probably all die, because we would have absolutely no will to do anything, because we'd have everything. So God, the entire evolutionary process provides us with the ability to build a future based on the events of the past. You see, so we have to have the past, all those long naturally occurring processes, in order to have the future. And we see throughout the universe, God has created nebulas, God, that produce stars. Why would God spend all the time doing all the work himself when he can create these vehicles like evolution, and to bring about the work on its own? All God has to do is come down and make a few tweaks, and I mean, kind of like a computer program. So evolution, based on the scientific evidence that we have, it is the most logical explanation for how we came about. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that our first parents were birthed by an ancient ancestor of a chimpanzee. I am, however, saying that God could have very well used the genome of stuff that was already here, because God does say in the Bible, he says, I have formed man out of the dust of the earth. And then he also refers dust throughout the Bible as living things upon the earth. So he didn't use any other reference. He didn't say I created man out of thin air. He uses dust, which refers to something that was already on the earth. And dust refers to living things throughout the Bible. And I actually explain this all in detail in my book. But so it's very logical that God already had those processes in place that created the genomes, that created the exact blueprints, through his little tweaks and twists throughout history. God created the perfect blueprint for man. And we have the fused chromosome theory. So chimpanzees have 24 chromosomes, man has 23 chromosomes. Well, one pair of chromosomes in man has been fused together. It's been proven. So basically, that is proof for evolutionary means to bring about man. So God could have just taken the genome from the ape and made a little fuse here and brought about the perfect image of man. But what I want you to think about too is, and it's hard to be able to explain all of this in a 10-minute video. That's why you need to go buy my book. But what you need to understand is that the image of God was before the image of the ape. So one way or another, God, the image of the people say that we descended from the image of the ape. Well, if you take the time factor out of it, technically the ape descended from the image of God. And in the physical universe, the ape did all the work through those evolutionary means to bring about the man in his physical state. So all God had to do was make a couple of tweaks, a couple of changes throughout here with these processes he set up. And I mean, he doesn't have to do all the work himself. So I go into detail with this in my book. Go ahead and check it out. There's a lot of stuff in there to blow your mind. So www.probingreligion.com. Thanks.